It's another edition of Back Porch Sports. I'm Scott Hamilton, and for the next hour, I'm going to take a lap around the Southeastern Conference as we tiptoe closer to the start of the 2026 college football season. A college football season that officially gets underway over in Ireland, with North Carolina playing TCU in week 0. But in the Southeastern Conference, well, it's going to start on a Thursday night. Missouri hosting Arkansas Pine Bluff, 7 p.m. Central kickoff. And then on Friday, Oklahoma playing UTEP, also 7 p.m. Central kickoff. Both those games will be on the SEC network, but things really crank up on Labor Day weekend. I'm talking Saturday, I'm talking Sunday. Auburn, a 7-point favorite right now versus Baylor in the Chick-fil-A Kickoff in Atlanta's Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And then that night, man, Tigers versus Tigers in Death Valley. Depending upon which color you wear, purple or orange, if it's the real Death Valley or not. We're talking about Clemson and LSU in Baton Rouge, primetime ABC game. LSU favored by 9.5 points. Lane Kiffin's debut as the head coach of the LSU Tigers. Have to think that place is going to be going absolutely bonkers. And Labor Day Sunday night, Kiffin's old team, Ole Miss, now coached by Pete Golding, 6.5-point favorites over Louisville. That's going to be in Nashville, Nash Vegas, just up the road. It's also a primetime ABC game. So we're up and running in just a few weeks. But I'll tell you what else is up and running right now. That's actual camps. Fall camps now underway for college football teams across America. Everybody's 0-0. Lots of hype, lots of hoopla. You just have to be careful for it to not evaporate too quickly once the season actually begins. I think back to last year, the expectations around, well, we'll use South Carolina as an example. South Carolina coming off a marvelous season in 2024, positioned to make a run at the college football playoff that year. Had it not been for a dozen flags and a bad roughing the passer penalty against LSU, the Gamecocks would have been in the college football playoff in 2024. Would have been a tough out too. But they did not make it, ended up going to the Citrus Bowl, losing to Illinois. Go into 2025, expectations sky high. And it didn't work out. 4-8 season for Shane Beamer's team. Lenore Sellers, who for some people was the number 1 rated quarterback in America last year. They had him on NFL draft boards as being possibly the number 1 overall pick. Just lots of sizzle, and it didn't work out. And it didn't work out for myriad reasons. 1, a very porous offensive line, and 2, really not great coaching from the offensive coordinator position, talking about Mike Shula, who became the offensive coordinator when Dow Loggins left after the 2024 season to go to be the head coach at Appalachian State. You put it all together, and it was basically a disaster of a year for the Gamecocks. But they're trying to rebound this year, and that means getting the quarterback into a good headspace. Lenore Sellers didn't forget how to play quarterback, or maybe he did. They have to unscramble his brain and do the damage from Mike Shula. What he does remember how to do is be an athlete, an elite athlete with skills that few other players in the country can emulate. He's fast, he's strong, he's big, and he's quick. You put all that together, and you've got a heck of a player if he can put it all together. And you have a coach who can pull the proper levers. And you also have to believe in yourself. You also have to have confidence. Quarterback, more than any position in football, is a confidence-driven position. You have to know that what you're doing is the right thing, and you have to know that you are going to successfully pull it off. Does Lenore Sellers have that kind of mindset going into 2026? Well, that was one of the questions of Shane Beamer when he opened up training camp. Here's what he said.
Season that we had, the blame falls on the head coach, and rightfully so. And then, not just in South Carolina, but anywhere, the quarterback. And he doesn't believe he's a 4-8 quarterback, and I don't believe that he's a 4-8 quarterback, So he took ownership and accountability for the season, and absolutely, we've got to be better around Lenoris. There's no doubt about it, but Lenoris will be the first to tell you. And we had a good meeting way back in whenever that was, January. Myself and Lenoris, and Kendall was here, and Lenoris's family, and just kind of talking about what 2026 is going to look like and what we need from each other, how we can be better for him, and where he needs to be better too. And he accepted all that and has really worked hard to be a better player.
Kendall being Kendall Briles, the new offensive coordinator at the University of South Carolina. And I think that's a fantastic marriage. Kendall Briles bringing his up-tempo offense for the Gamecocks, and it should be a better fit for Lenore Sellers. Very different than the pro-style systems that Mike Shula was trying to run, where Lenore Sellers would basically have to take the snap and then process 8 gazillion things before actually moving forward and making a football play. Not the case with the Kendall Briles offense. And the Kendall Briles offense always has a power run component to it. It's really rooted in that, especially at the quarterback position. When you have a large quarterback who can move, who can run between the tackles, that's really an asset, and it really is what powers that offense. So people are bullish in South Carolina again, but still a little guarded considering everything that happened last year. And that's going to bring me to my next point. The coaches poll is out. Coaches poll decided about 73 coaches who were selected by the American Football Coaches Association. It's a preseason poll. Make of it what you will. 9 SEC teams are ranked in the coaches poll. 7 SEC teams play 5 or more ranked teams. Check this out. Florida plays 7. Auburn, Kentucky, South Carolina, Vanderbilt each play 6. Arkansas, Mississippi State each play 5. Now, other than playing an exorbitant amount of ranked teams in the coaches poll, what is the tie that binds all of those together? None of those teams are ranked. You talk about the depth of the conference. Wow, that is absolutely bonkers. But again, polls are dangerous. Preseason polls are dangerous. And I say that as a longtime AP Top 25 pollster. I'm one of 62 people who put together the AP poll each and every week. We fill out our ballot on Sunday mornings and we submit it. It's a practice we do throughout the duration of the season. And even in years past, it was tough but not impossible to put together a preseason poll that maybe emulated how things actually were. It maybe wasn't too far apart from what it would look like at the end of the year. But that's because you had a lot of guys coming back. You were able to look at who was gone, look at who was returning, and then juxtapose that against the schedule and see who each individual opponent had returning and gone and so on and so forth. And you could put together a pretty good top 25. Can't do that now. You can't do that. It's a fool's errand, and it's a dangerous errand in that it sets a precedent that's hard to shake the further you go into the season. No team has won a national championship that was unranked in the preseason since Georgia Tech in 1990. Wrap your mind around that. That's hard to fathom, but it's because of the precedent set in August. If you are not perceived as being a national championship caliber team, you don't really get the attention you deserve. And there are other things to consider as well. Let's say you are a ranked team in the preseason and you go through September 2-2. Okay, well, more than likely the pollsters and the people on the college football playoff selection committee, who are human beings, they are tainted just like the rest of us when it comes to outside influences. That 2-2 team is more than likely going to get the benefit of the doubt. Oh, well, it was bad weather. It was rough scheduling. They had injuries. It was 2 freak plays, yada, yada, yada. And that team is going to linger in the rankings longer than it probably should. By contrast, you might have a team that went 4-0 that was unranked in the preseason, and it's going to be labeled as possibly a fluke 9 times out of 10, or the product of good scheduling, soft scheduling. The opponents didn't play to the level that they were expected to play, so on and so forth. You see what I'm going with here. And once those precedents are baked in, man, it's hard to pry them out. It's hard to pry them out, and it applies for the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. After all, they are human. You cannot believe anybody when they say we didn't pay any attention to preseason polls. Each week is a blank slate, a clean sheet of paper, and we start over. I don't buy it. I truly don't buy it. And to further drive home my point about how dangerous preseason polls are, and I'll prove myself guilty of this in a moment, here are the top 4 teams from the 2025 coaches preseason poll. Texas at number 1, good but not great season, lost out of the gate to Ohio State, probably make the playoff if they don't play that game. Penn State fired its coach, James Franklin, gone. Ohio State, good season. And Clemson finishing around 500, barely making a bowl game, and then losing to Penn State, which didn't even have its regular coach. That's how the preseason poll in the AP worked out, and I'm guilty as anybody. I had it Texas, Clemson, Penn State 1, 2, and 3. Wow. And to keep it in the SEC, we were talking about South Carolina. South Carolina was number 13 in last year's preseason poll, the AP poll. I had them 12th. So it's dangerous and it's a fool's errand. You do not know. The transfer portal, teams are different from one year to the next. Yeah, you have some guys returning, and presumably the team that has the most returning production should emulate that success the following year, but it's not a guarantee. Think about South Carolina last year. Lost a lot of guys on defense, but that offense was back. But because of what was happening at the offensive coordinator role, it didn't work out. So make what you will of preseason polls. By the way, the AP preseason poll will be coming out on August 17th. I've got to turn mine in by August 11th, August the 12th, somewhere thereabouts. I'm struggling. And don't hate me for however it ends up looking. Please don't hate me for however it ends up looking. A couple other things before we head to the break. We're still trying to get some kind of clarity regarding the Protect College Sports Act. Even if it becomes a law at some point, be it down the road, a few months, a few weeks, a year from now, whatever, how important is it? How impactful is it? Is it good? Is it bad? And how does it impact the game? Not necessarily the game being football, not necessarily from the perspective of salary caps and conference membership and so on and so forth, but how does it impact coaches on a day-to-day basis, what it's proposing? That's a question I have for Bill Clark. Bill Clark, Alabama native, former head coach at UAB, a lot of success at UAB. He's now the president of a great organization called Coach Safely. It's essentially a grassroots organization that wants to teach youth coaches and really anybody that has an interest in a vested interest in the game how to properly identify and prevent and treat injuries and so on. How to properly teach basic football movements such as tackling, which that doesn't mean going out and, hey, you got to beat each other to death. No, it is a step-by-step process if you want to do it correctly. Coach Clark's going to come aboard the Duncan Williams Asset Management Hotline later in the program, and we're going to get his take on that wonderful organization, but also going to ask him his thoughts on the Protect College Sports Act. How will it impact coaches on a day-to-day basis? Are they in favor of it? What would he like to see in it? What's missing? We'll ask him those questions and more when he joins us later in the program. But on the other side, guess what? All-American teams are out. Southeastern Conference, well represented. We'll go over that and more. It's Back Porch Sports, presented by Duck Club Bourbon.
Good games, good friends, real stories. That's what Saturdays are all about on the Back Porch, proudly sponsored by Duck Club Bourbon.
Welcome back. It's Back Porch Sports, presented by Duck Club Bourbon. We're going to be joined by former UAB head coach Bill Clark about 15, 16 minutes on the Duncan Williams Asset Management Hotline. We're going to discuss the Protect College Sports Act and also that wonderful organization that he's now fronting, Coach Safely, how to identify and prevent injuries in youth football and really all the way up. It's really fascinating what they have going on. We're going to discuss that with Coach Clark when he joins us in just a few moments. I mentioned it before the break. The All-American teams are starting to trickle out. I have to put together my AP All-American team and have it submitted by August 12th, so I've got to get cooking. I've got mine written down. It's tough. It's tough for myriad reasons. One, there's so much talent returning. It's crazy. And I've done this now for 12, 13, 14 years. I don't know that I've ever had a year that's been more difficult because of the vast amounts of returning talent, of production. Look at the quarterback position. The quarterback position alone is just absolutely captivating. And I'm really twisting over who to have at quarterback. Sporting News has already released its All-American team. Before that, they were trickling out all decades teams, which was really cool. They started in the 1960s, and then they did it in 10-year blocks, obviously 60s, 70s, 80s, so on and so forth, all the way up to the 2020s. That was a cool exercise. And I came away thinking two things. One, that the college football might have been deepest in the 1990s or the 2010s. And two, SEC puts out a lot of good football players and has traditionally done so. It was really fun on the Sporting News to do that. But this current AP All-American team, the 2026 Sporting News All-American team, rather, loaded with Southeastern Conference players. 23 total make the first and second teams. 5 on first-team offense, 7 on first-team defense. Ole Miss kicker Lucas Carneiro, he's first-team kicker. And Ryan Niblett, he's the first-team punt returner. He's over in Texas. Big Ten had 14 players total, so make of that what you will. The SEC had 9 more. Let's go over it really quickly. Ole Miss quarterback Trinidad Chambliss, one of 4 first-team Rebels. He's first-team quarterback. Backfield is Ole Miss's Kawan Lacey and Missouri's Ahmad Hardy. I think that's absolutely lights out. Ahmad Hardy, what is he going to do? Remember, he got shot a few months ago. Presumably, he's going to be okay. He's going to be good to go, but still, it's more man to me if he can get shot and return and play football just a few months later. Texas wide receiver Cam Coleman, first team, this after transferring from Auburn. And second team, Arch Manning, second team quarterback at Texas. South Carolina's Dylan Stewart, second team edge rusher. Safety Bray Hubbard. This one is really interesting. Safety Bray Hubbard is the only Alabama defensive back to make either first or second team. That is surprising, considering that the Tide might have the best defensive backfield in the country. Make of that what you will. I guess the sum of the parts equals more than the individual parts, I guess. The sum of the whole, the same. Go with that. But again, this is a tough exercise. And we were burned last year. We were burned last year by the AP All-American team when I was putting it together in much the same way we were burned by how the top 25 rankings looked. Don't forget, last year we were having the debate at quarterback. Who's number one quarterback? Who's All-American quarterback? And it was between Garrett Nussmeier at LSU. It was between Kate Klubnik at Clemson, Arch Manning. None of the three had a great season, and I guess if you were to dial it down, you could say, yeah, Arch did have the best season of the bunch, but he had to get it together at the end. His second half of the season, very different from the first half. And I guess that's to be expected considering his still relative lack of experience and that they did open up against Ohio State. But it makes you think twice about it. It makes you have some trepidation when it comes to assembling these teams. Is this guy really that good? Can he replicate the success he had last year? Yada, yada, yada. I've had a different first team quarterback probably 3 times over the past 4 days that I've been working on this. And who I eventually land upon, I don't really know, to be quite candid. That's where I'm at with it. I'm still trying to put it over in my mind. Who should be first team All-American quarterback? And I better hurry. Only got a few days left to get that thing done. Here's another interesting tidbit. Piece of news out of Baton Rouge, and we were talking about Baton Rouge earlier, that being the site of Lane Kiffin's debut Labor Day Saturday night against Clemson. LSU, number 12 in a coaches poll. There was a meeting held at the governor's mansion to go over a sports funding plan. Jeff Landry, once more, sticking his nose into LSU athletics. And essentially what they're trying to do, what they want to do, is create an LLC that will produce sustained revenue through targeted investments. They're looking for a long-term answer to fund LSU athletics because donor fatigue is real. There comes a threshold where you just cannot squeeze any more money out of your donors. They get tired of asking to write a check for this and a check for that, and especially when you're not getting results. LSU not making the college football playoff under Brian Kelly, and now here comes Lane Kiffin. Jeff Landry saying private equity isn't a consideration, that LSU will make control. Still sounds like a private equity situation to me. If you're trying to create something where people are putting money in and they're expecting a result, we'll litigate that another time. But basically, Governor Jeff Landry's taken over LSU athletics. He shoved Brian Kelly out. He showed Scott Woodward the door. How involved should a governor be? Hit me up on social media at Scott H Sports on X. DMs are open. How involved should a governor be in a university's athletics? I think about Jim Justice's role at pushing out the coach at Marshall, Charles Huff, a few years ago, and he landed at Memphis. Did a great job. Or it was not Charles Huff. It was Doc Holliday, the coach before him. I misspoke. But how involved should a governor be in a university's athletics? Let me know on X at Scott H Sports. Think about the money that LSU is pumping into its athletics right now. It owed Brian Kelly $54 million. It owed Matt McMahon, the men's basketball coach, $8 million. I'm not a math whiz, but a quick scan around my brain makes it equal up to $62 million right there. Okay, so that's $62 million. You spend $91 on Lane Kiffin to come to get the Joey Freshwater experience in Baton Rouge. And then you give Will Wade $30 million. That in and of itself is $121 million. You add 62 to that, $183 million on coaches over the last 9 months. That is bonkers. And that doesn't include the price of coaching staffs, the buyouts for the assistants, and the salaries for the new coaches. That is insane. No wonder they're having to find new sources of money. But here's a question. What does LSU do if it doesn't work out? If these guys don't work out, if Lane Kiffin doesn't do at LSU what he is expected to do, what he's getting paid buku dollars to do, if Will Wade flames out and he makes the whole deal of going and bringing him back from NC State just a fruitless exercise, an expensive one, what do the people at LSU do? Do they sit there and finally and go, man, you know what? We put all the money we could into this. If we can't buy a championship, we can't buy a spot in the CFP or the Final Four or what have you, we need to just move on. Seriously. What do they do? How do they resolve that? And it's hard to imagine. I mean, LSU, as much as any place, perhaps more than any place, has resources out to yin-yang. And you think that before Brian Kelly, in the 21st century, 3 different coaches won national titles. I mean, Ed Orgeron won a national title, for goodness sakes. Coach O won a championship. And they gave him $16 million to go away. The difference was he knew it was a lot of money. He knew he had outkicked his coverage by winning a national title, a generational team with a generational quarterback. He gladly took his check, and I think he said something to the effect of, okay, which door do you want me to leave out of? And then he stuck around and kept recruiting for LSU. And now he's back on the staff. He just loves LSU, and he's got a lot of money in the bank. But that was the whole reason they brought in Brian Kelly from Notre Dame. You don't leave Notre Dame unless you're expecting to win a national title. And he's tried to clarify those remarks now that he's gone from LSU, because when he was going out the door, he was kind of saying, well, you can't win a national title at Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman has proven that you can. He hasn't done it yet, but they've been really close, and they might do it this year, to be honest. But if Brian Kelly, who you would think is a good football coach, can't do it, man. Now, you could point to other reasons. It was a bad fit from the get-go. Culturally, it just didn't make sense, and he got off to that stumbling start by faking the accent. But what do they do? Can it just not be done anymore? Maybe that's it. I think it can, given the massive resources they have. And I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about just in-state talent and all the out-of-state talent within a relatively short drive. And then, of course, the zealous boosters they have who are willing to pony up for NIL, so on and so forth. But the LSU has to get out of its own way first. I think that's the immediate concern, to get out of their own way, to figure out, hey, what are we doing to hinder this thing, to keep this operation from living up to its full potential? I don't think the governor sticking his nose in it is the right way to go about it, but another topic for another time. The topic right now, the Protect College Sports Act, that piece of legislation that's been meandering up on Capitol Hill. The senators finally got a copy of it. What happens if it becomes a law? It's gone from 110 pages to 171 pages. That's what happens when the SEC and the Big Ten come together and say, okay, we're actually going to team up on this. We're going to make this thing work for us. Here are the changes we want to see before we sign off on it. And, well, it's swelled by 60 pages. But what does it mean at the base level for coaches? How will it change their modus operandi, how they go about running a program, how they go about coaching? How will it impact them on a day-to-day basis, not just big picture stuff like capping conferences at 19 teams or adding another $20 million to the salary cap? Those are some of the questions we're going to ask former UAB coach, Bill Clark, when he joins us on the other side on the Duncan Williams Asset Management Hotline. I'm Scott Hamilton. This is Back Porch Sports, presented by Duck Club Bourbon.
From the blind to the back porch, some traditions are built to be shared. Duck Club Bourbon, real heritage, no gimmicks. Proud sponsor of Back Porch Sports.
No word yet on the Protect College Sports Act, that piece of legislation that is now in the hands of senators. We're waiting to see if they're going to get a vote. No word, though, this week. But then again, we thought this thing was dead 6 days ago. And it's almost too quiet. When things are this quiet, it's usually when we get a big piece of news. How important is this thing? If it comes to life, what are the pros, what are the cons? And maybe not big picture as far as conference realignment or TV revenue or salary cap and all that, but how important is it? How big is it if you're coaching? What do coaches think of this? And what do coaches think of the current state of the game? Well, I'm getting ready to speak to a good one. He was 60-30 in 7 years as a head coach. Most of that at UAB. He was a National Coach of the Year. Won a couple of CUSA titles. Coach Bill Clark, welcome aboard. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, man. And hey, before we get into some serious topics, have you seen about this promotion they're doing at the University of Akron?
No.
They are doing a contest. Coach, you're going to love this, I think. They are having a contest where a season ticket holder will be selected to help script the opening drive in the season opener against Robert Morris. They'll work with Joe Moorhead. Coach, the tweet that announced it got 28 million views. They've already sold out all their hospitality, and they have already eclipsed their season ticket goals. If Bill Clark is coaching today, does he get behind an initiative like this, or do you say, no, we keep these books closed, you're not welcome in our locker room?
Wow. I tell you, when you're at places like Akron and you're places that are finding a way, trying to raise money in the NIL world, that's a tough one. But I would say I give Joe, I give those guys credit for thinking outside the box. And that's probably going to be controlled. Hey, here's the menu, and here's the two plays you're going to get to choose from. Whatever that is, I give them credit for finding a way, and anything that brings attention to the whatever we want to say, the non-power four, whatever those guys, that gets people in the stands, gets them excited. I'm all for that. So give them credit for thinking outside the box.
Well, and as a coach, your time's at a premium. You got 100 billion things that most people don't even think about that you have to take care of on a daily basis. But you also are aware that part of that is keeping your fan base happy and keeping your boosters engaged. And I said it before I brought you on, Coach. The one thing that a person who strokes a check or buys a ticket wants more than anything is access and to be acknowledged. And I think this is a perfect way to do it.
Well, access, that is the key. How could we give folks access that was controlled? And whether we're having breakfasts where we talk about the program, which, a lot of that's the off season, but, come to a practice for a select group of folks. That's it. That's what they're wanting. They're wanting behind the curtain. They're wanting access. And I think any way you can do it that does not take away from your program is good business and smart to do.
We're joined by Bill Clark, former head coach, University of Alabama, Birmingham. Coach, I know you've been monitoring this Protect College Sports Act. We've not heard anything, but that doesn't mean we might get a vote any minute. You know how they work up on Capitol Hill. What's your take on it? What are your pros? What are your cons with it?
Yeah, I'm gonna real quick give the background to this. We saw NIL coming 3 years down the road. The coaches by the second year were voting 100%. Don't go down this road where it was immediate eligibility with paying the players, and we were all fine with doing. Everybody wanted to take care of their kids. Everybody thought, let's have some kind of pay. Obviously we had no guardrails, which is where we are now. So the model we have right now is not sustainable. I think we've kind of gotten past the whole, do we pay the players or not? But it's not sustainable. So what protects the athlete while preserving college sports? I think it's 80% good, maybe 20% not. We're not going to agree on all the things. I probably can't give you every nuance of it, but we know something has to be done besides just protecting the revenue sports, but also the non-revenue sports. So, I'm at least excited about that we are doing something to address this unsustainable model that we have now.
How much of it, though, could be alleviated if they just made common sense decisions with regards to the calendar? I mean, have the portal and all that open up, recruiting even open up after the national championship.
Yeah, just common sense. Just getting from the 2 to the 1 was like, can you believe we were having 2 open windows? You don't even know who your team is, and then all of a sudden they can go grab them after spring. So at least thank God we did that. But I think common sense, which is not very common, and we don't talk to the experts. I mean, the people that understand the game are the coaches. That's who we need to be listening to and talking. And everybody's going to have a little different nuance based on where they are and what league they're in. But once again, at least we're addressing it. Let's get common sense in there. We're not all going to agree, but I am excited because I don't think we're sustainable where we are, for sure.
And Coach, I have one more question about it before we move on and discuss this wonderful program you're part of, Coach Safely Foundation. I've got a theory, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if things don't change in the next 5 to 6 years, we are going to see a very diluted pool of coaches at the college level that I just don't see how anybody that wants a normal life can keep working at the college level regardless of how much money it is. I think they'd rather go ahead and try to work their way up through the pro ranks where you still make a really good salary, but you also have a very set calendar. You don't have to have 3 cell phones on your hands at all times because you're recruiting portal, you're recruiting high school, you're recruiting your own team. What's your take? Can you see the pool of coaching candidates in college being diluted over the next 5 years if something doesn't change?
That you couldn't have said a truer statement. And, I think every person out there that works this 9-to-5 job says, well, heck, I'll go make this money. But I don't know, when you start talking about you've worked your life to do something that you believe in, somebody inspired you to want to be a coach and you want to give back to your kids, and we've turned it into just transactional. You're never set. There's never a chance for these guys. I mean, it was always 365, but now it's 365 plus, and we're going to lose the quality folks. And, and anybody that's close or thinks they're close is going to find something else to do. They're going the sport that we absolutely love and believe in. And, you didn't mind the hours when you knew you felt like you were doing something that at least had rules. And that's the point here. Let's not lose our coaches to the pro league. Let's get some rules. Let's get some rules we can agree on. And that's the whole point. How do you have anything without standards and rules? So, yeah, I agree with you. We got to do something.
We're joined by former UAB head coach Bill Clark. Follow him on X at Coach Bill Clark. He's now the president of the Coach Safely Foundation. And, Coach, I'll be honest with you. I hadn't heard of this until our mutual friend Pat Smith was telling me about it the other night, and then I'm all in. I want to know more. My first take of it, Coach, and I'll let you elaborate, you are not only making sure that the game is taught correctly from the ground up at the very grassroots level to make things safer, but I think what you're doing is actually making the game more survivable. All the people that are coming out to criticize football, you're trying to cut them off at the knees by alleviating a lot of the safety concerns at the get-go. What's your take?
Yeah, that's it. And so when we came up with this idea, and it was started by Jack Crow, if you know the name, he's Bo Jackson, the offense coordinator at Auburn, and a bunch of stops. But this is a Dr. Jimmy Andrews. He was kind of the doc. I was the coach when I was at UAB, and this was just, coach back to his stop program. If you remember early 2000s, we finally got, how many pitches should a pitcher throw? Especially when we're talking about kids. There was nothing out there for specifically the youth, and I remember being a high school coach and meeting with coaches and saying, look, I'm gonna talk to you about tackling, but your number one job is to not run them off. Your number two is let's protect them, keep the head out of it. All those things So when we were talking about this, I said, look, I will be in this and I will be part of this. Even though I'm coaching, I'll be part of it. You can use me. But the whole key here is so they will play. And so what we're trying to do, we are being preventive. We passed a law in 2018, the Coach Safely law. It was named after our foundation. And so what this is an online training course that coaches can take. We have the law in Alabama. Louisiana just passed this law. Arkansas has passed the law. You can go online and you can take our course. We have an app, so the coach can literally look at our app. We've just yesterday we will have AI where you can actually ask our course questions about keeping kids safe. And remember, the key to this is preventive. These are moms and dads that are out there, coaching, giving back to their kids and the community of kids, but they're not professional coaches. High school coaches get training, and so we really have not tried to get into that world, even though we've got buy-in from every association we talk to. But Georgia and Texas and South Carolina and all the surrounding states, we're really starting in the Southeast. I talked to Governor Braun not long ago. I think we're about to get Indiana. We're talking to Oklahoma. So for all sports, not just football, but specifically contact sports, specifically football, we're talking about heat illness, we're talking about lightning, we're talking about emergency action plans, all these things so they can get out there, take care of these kids so they'll play and keep playing.
And Coach, my last question for you, and I'll let you tell me if I'm wrong or not. We've only got a couple of minutes, but I know there was a movement a while back. I think it might have been Dartmouth or the Ivy League. They wanted to do no contact tackling and use tackling dummies. And I was actually okay with that, Coach, because I felt like it was muscle memory more than anything else. And if you do, it's like swinging a golf club. If you do it over and over and over, you're eventually going to learn to do it the correct way, assuming you practice it the correct way. If you're coaching today, how much live tackling are you doing? How much are you doing with dummies?
Yeah, great question. The big thing we talked about was we only tackle to the ground every so often. Now, thud. But, it's like I'm going to go make contact with, I'm going to go block somebody. I'm going to go take on a block. I'm going to tackle. There's a walk-through phase at the professional level. I mean, we're walking into contact. Yeah. We're walking into where's our head. We're keeping our head out of tackling. So I gave a talk to I have two grandsons that are starting to play, and Trussville's a great, town close by. They've been in with Coach Safety the whole time. So I'm talking to 50-something coaches. I've got one of my guys talking to about safety. And now I start talking about football, and I'm like, look, we walk through these things. We're tackling dummies. We're fitting. The last thing we do is live, and we're telling them how to keep the head out of it. So, yes, you can get a lot done in walkthroughs. You can get a lot done with dummies. And then you start adding this deal where we start trying to stay up, and and I think the key to this whole deal is progression. It's progression, teaching them the right way, teaching them how to keep safe, teaching them. And as I always say in football, let's not run them off early. Let's make it fun as we can. And that's all sports. Keeping them out.
I love it. He's Coach Bill Clark. Follow him on X at Coach Bill Clark. Coach, you're the man, brother. Hey, we appreciate coming on today. We got to get you back again.
Love to get back. Great questions, and appreciate what you do to promote all sports, but specifically football.
All righty, Coach. You have a good one. That's the great Coach Bill Clark, University of Alabama, Birmingham.
We believe Saturdays are built on family, tradition, and the stories that stick with you. Duncan Williams helps protect the legacy behind it all, today, tomorrow, and for what comes next.
We're making the final lap. Back Porch Sports, presented by Duck Club Bourbon. Want to thank former UAB head coach Bill Clark for joining us on the Duncan Williams Asset Management Hotline. Hey, and here's a reminder. If you want to explore the prediction markets, well, guess what? Kalshi is going to give you a head start. Visit Kalshi.com/blitz, and you'll get $20 to begin your journey in the prediction markets. That's Kalshi.com/blitz. I appreciate Coach Clark's perspective on all the matters that we discussed, especially the safety aspects of it, the safety parts of football, talking about coach safely. Tackling is indeed, it's like a golf swing. I said that earlier, and a golf swing isn't just one motion. It has myriad parts in it, and you practice each myriad part, and they're all connected, knee bone to the shin bone to the yada, 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 yada. You know what I mean. And you practice that. You practice each individual part, and then you begin to put them together. It's like in tackling. Well, you work on dropping your hips. Well, you work on shooting your arms. You work on head placement. Then you put it all together. Really appreciate his approach to it. And I also appreciate his approach to realizing that this promotion up at Akron, how impactful that could be. How that if the person at Akron who gets the winning, who gets selected to call the opening plays for Akron's opening game against Robert Morris, that could start something around the country. And I think it would be great. I think fan access and fan engagement is at a paramount. It's at a premium, especially at the group of 6. Fans and boosters want to feel like they're acknowledged. They want access. They want to be a part of the team. They are writing the checks. They want to be a part of the team. And it's like that at every level, but it's really like that at those smaller levels where it's much more intimate and you do have more access and you do feel more connected. It doesn't feel like a multi-million-dollar enterprise. It truly feels like Old State U's team. By allowing this fan to participate throughout the week, sit in meetings, work with Coach Joe Moorhead to draw up the plays, and to be in the coaching box on Saturday. Whew. That's pretty cool. And I hope it's something that we see more of going forward. A couple of tidbits before we go. Oh, here's interesting. ESPN's Ryan McGee, friend of the program, really good guy. He has come out with his list on ESPN.com of the top 10 college football supervillains of all time, and several SEC figures made that list. I'm sure you can guess who they are. This one did surprise me, though, but when you think about it, I guess he wears both hats. Number 8, former Florida quarterback Tim Tebow. You love to hate him. I guess some people feel that he was disingenuous or maybe a little holier than thou. I never hated Tim Tebow. I never thought of him as a villain. I thought of him as an incredible competitor, a wonderful teammate, and somebody who, well, he's not afraid to voice his opinions and to display his faith. So I have no problem with Tim Tebow. But then you get to 3, 2, and 1. Number 3, Johnny Manziel, Johnny Football, Texas A&M. Yeah, doing the dollar sign thingy where, he's rubbing his fingers together for the money and all that. Yeah, I could see that. Number 2, Lane Kiffin. What's incredible is, does Lane Kiffin, let's think about this. Does Lane Kiffin make this list 1 year ago, 10 months ago? Does he make this list after the documentary comes out? The documentary that humanized him, that showed that he is now an adult, a 50-plus-year-old man who has matured and he has learned from his mistakes and he's trying to do better. He's trying to do better as a coach and as a father and as a friend and a mentor and a person in the community. When it came out, it even pushed my opinion of Lane Kiffin more to the gentle side. I labeled it as this documentary on ESPN, The Many Lives of Lane Kiffin. I do believe that's what it was called. I labeled it as a requiem for divorced dads everywhere. Anybody that's been divorced that has children, I felt like, yeah, he's like us. He understands us. Lane Kiffin, man, he is a normal guy, and he did make mistakes, and he has been a brat and this and that, but he's changed. And if he can change, we can all do better. I really felt like that. And we're watching him do hot yoga, and we're watching him play with Juice's dog and just being different. And then it ended up all being an act. He deserves to make this list now just by virtue of not actually owning Juice, of Juice not actually being his dog. Shame on him for that. And number 1, was there any doubt? Number 1, Steve Spurrier, the head ball coach. Father of the best one-liners ever. I can't decide which one I like better. The one about Florida State after they got busted for the perks that players were getting from agents at Foot Locker, where he called them Free Shoes University, FSU, Free Shoes University. Or was it the one where you can't spell citrus without UT? Still sideways with Tennessee after all these years. A native of Tennessee, but never got over the fact they didn't recruit him what he felt was appropriately. Steve Spurrier holding grudges, man. Just here's some other notables from this list. Oklahoma's Caleb Williams, number 10. Brian Bosworth, number 4. Kind of count, but don't. Oklahoma wasn't in the SEC when Caleb Williams was there before going to Southern Cal, and same for Brian Bosworth. I'm not going to play the ACC card and say, no, it counts, it counts, it counts. The way the ACC will pull out Stanford Olympic athletes who never competed a day as a member of the Atlantic Coast Conference. I'm not going to do that. Maybe you should count ESPN at number 7. Ryan's got ESPN down as one of the all-time villains in college football. I would consider that as part of the SEC, considering it gave birth to the SEC network. Here's the rest of the list. Number 9, Deion Sanders, both as a player at Florida State and then as the coach at Colorado. Number 6, Notre Dame, duh. Number 5, very specific, the 1990 Miami Hurricanes. That was the team that had 15 penalties and 202 yards in a 46-3 win over Texas in the Cotton Bowl. They were so ticked off because they felt they didn't get their appropriate recognition, so they went out to Texas and just really acted like jerks. But who was left out? Could you put the SEC overall on that list? What about the Big Ten? They are villains in a lot of parts of the country right now. There are pretty stark lines dividing the two, both geographically and culturally. And here are some that are maybe not villains, but definitely heels. Brian Kelly, we mentioned him earlier. And don't forget, he actually had someone get killed at Notre Dame because he had them go up in a tower. I believe they were videoing practice, and it was just the weather conditions were awful, and the guy died. Jimbo Fisher, you put him on that list? You put Jimbo on that list, buddy. You know how he talks. Barry Switzer and Jimmy Johnson, I tie them together because those, you either love them or hate them. Same with Ohio State and Michigan. You either love them or hate them. And Jameis Winston, he was trying to be a colorful character and all this other stuff. Meanwhile, he's being accused of rape, stealing crab legs. Perhaps he should be on that list. We might address that again at another time. One closing thought. And we were talking about the Protect College Sports Act and legislation up on Capitol Hill and this, that, and the other. The U.S. Senate, this is how the U.S. Senate now, agreeing that Missouri should be recognized as college football's national champion for 1960. Check this out. Republican Senator Eric Schmidt of Missouri introducing Resolution 833, and it calls on the Tigers to be formally recognized as national champs for an 11-0 season in 1960. Don't forget, Missouri, if you ever remembered, Missouri lost its season finale to Kansas in 1960, 23-7. The Big Eight later found out that Kansas played an ineligible player and therefore ordered the Jayhawks to forfeit the game, making the Tigers, who were then coached under Dan Devine, 11-0 on the season after an Orange Bowl victory. Well, Schmidt's resolution would say no. If they were undefeated, then they should have been the national champs. And here's how he framed it up on Capitol Hill.
6 decades later, the 1960 Tigers still embody the character of Missouri. They are people who work. We are a people who work. We are a people who endure. We are a people who keep our promises. The men of that team brought home a Big 8 championship in the Orange Bowl and the Orange Bowl championship game in a perfect season. But their greatest legacy was the example they left behind. Stand firm, do the work, keep your word. Run the ball, and never surrender what was rightfully yours. Today, I'm proud to honor Coach Dan Devine, Nora Stevenson, and every member of the undefeated 1960 Missouri Tigers. Their promise was kept, their championship was earned, their record remains perfect, and Kansas still lost. Mr. President, as if in legislative session and notwithstanding Rule 22, I ask unanimous consent. The Senate proceed to the consideration of Senate Resolution 833, which is before the desk.
The clerk will report.
Senate Resolution 833, recognizing the 1960 University of Missouri Tigers football team for its undefeated regular season Orange Bowl victory and claim to the 1960 national championship.
Is there an objection to proceeding to the measure? Without objection, the Senate will proceed.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, and the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. I yield.
All righty. We have wars going on. We're trying to pick an attorney general. Trying to figure out how to fund the government through the end of the year. But, man, we got to get this thing pushed through. And, indeed, it was pushed through. Schmidt's resolution passed. with unanimous consent. Now, the NCAA, that's a different matter. Ole Miss and Minnesota split the 1960 title. How are they going to shoehorn a third team? Will there be a three-way tie for championship if indeed the NCAA ever acknowledges it? But it's a big deal for Missouri. Missouri 12-2 in 2007 for the first time since 1969, reached number one in the AP poll for the first time since 1960. But they finished fourth. LSU won the title that year. Quarterback Chase Daniel, fourth in the Heisman Trophy race in 2007. And it's a big deal for Missouri because Missouri, the eighth winningest team in college football history without a national title. 721, 593, and 52. What's the winningest team to not have a national title? That'd be West Virginia. 787 wins and nothing to show for it. That's it for this edition of Back Porch Sports. I want to thank former Alabama Birmingham coach Bill Clark for joining us on the Duncan Williams Asset Management Hotline. Don't forget to check out our podcast on YouTube. And also don't forget to hit me up on social media at Scott H Sports over on X/Twitter. DMs are open. Questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, whatever. Hit me up. If there is a topic you would like me to discuss, happy to do it. If there is a guest you would like us to have on, I will do my darndest to facilitate it. But otherwise, until next time, this has been Back Porch Sports, presented by Duck Club Bourbon.